It depends how you think. If you decide you are going to be able to walk, then you are going to walk. You have to master the land, not let it master you. When I get back home, what I wanted to do with my life is find some stability, be with my family, and find someone who will love me.
Oscar was a teacher in Guatemala. He dreamed of studying technology in the U.S. After all he has risked and lost, he will return to exactly the same life in Guatemala, as a teacher, but without two limbs. I asked him whether he'd warn others against trying to make such a trip.
I couldn't say to another not to do it because I can't speak for another, but I would say be very careful and that there are many risks.
A half-an-hour drive away on the other side of the Mexican border in Guatemala is another hostel where immigrants rest before the next leg of their illegal journey to the U.S.
Over here, they give us food and they give us water. They give us like rooms to sleep. They give us 3 days. Those 3 days we gotta plan what we're gonna have to do, what road we take. We ask whatever question we want to the social worker.
A 16-year-old girl from Honduras, who doesn't want to give her name, tells me why she is here in the hostel.
If I would have found work in there, I would have stayed with my mom. When I came here to the House of Immigrants, I heard that 2 women got raped and got killed. They were from Honduras. And then yesterday I heard that 4 Hondurans got killed and 2 Nicaraguans. And I didn't try to cross over because I got scared those 2 days. And I'm going to see, I haven't heard that nobody's gotten killed yet, so I'm going to try to cross over tomorrow.
Have you met the police as well or not?
Yes, I've met them. Sometimes we have to pay them to let us keep going the road. When we get out of the bus, that's the problem, because we got to go through mountains where there's a lot of trees and stuff, and the police don't see us. That's where the gangs wait for us, because sometimes they already know the time and everything that we're going to cross over. That's where they wait for us, and they kill us, or sometimes they hurt us and get all our money. Steal our money.
Last year, 70 people were killed by gangs, or maras as they are known. Their activities stretch all the way from El Salvador to the U.S., and those trying to reach the U.S. illegally make perfect targets in the murky world of drug trafficking and immigrant smuggling. All of those at the hostel have been, or expect to be, robbed on this journey. The savvy ones get their families to wire money to Western Union offices along the way, but this young woman is worried about more than losing her money.
Young girls like us, they suffer a lot. We could get pregnant and crossing over, we could get pregnant. Yeah. But we always do for it. As long as we stay alive, all we want is to be in the United States. It don't matter what the consequences are to us as long as we get there. Because we know we suffer, but we also think of our family suffering.
Stretch of the Suachi River divides Guatemala and Mexico. As bicycles and tomatoes cross on makeshift rafts, a single policeman is overseeing the trade. As sun rises tomorrow, this young Honduran woman, fully aware of all the risks and dangers that lie ahead of her, will try and cross this river and begin her long journey to the U.S. What's the chances that you make it to America?
50% out of 100. We all know in the heart that there's always going to be problems. But to give us courage, we ourselves say, no, there's not going to be problems. We're going to be okay.
For Dispatches, this is Nicola Fell at the border of Guatemala and Mexico.
And I'm Rick McInnes-Ray in Canada, and you're listening to Dispatches on CBC Radio 1 and on Sirius Satellite Radio. And you can also download the program and listen at your leisure. The website address is www.cbc.ca/podcasting. And remember, we'd like your comments on our stories. We invite you to email them to dispatches@cbc.ca. Now, the people attempting to sneak into the southern states are no longer just young men. The majority are now women, mostly single mothers. And following them along the smuggler's path are thousands of their young children, sometimes on their own. Journalist Sonia Nazario has won a Pulitzer Prize for her coverage of this issue in the Los Angeles Times. She spent months traveling with and talking to these kids. Her new book, Enrique's Journey, examines the story of one boy separated from his mother, Lourdes, and who after 11 years heads north alone to find her. Sonia Nazario joins me from Culver City in California. Welcome to Dispatches.
Thank you, Rick.
Could you describe Enrique for me? Give me a kind of mental picture to work with. What kind of a kid is he?
Well, he's a boy whose mother left him at the age of 5, and ever since then he's just been desperate to be with her. And 11 years after his mother leaves him, he sets off to go find her alone. I would say, if anything, I would characterize him as a stubborn kid and one who just desperately wants to be with his mother.
I guess a lot of kids do, but not a lot of them decide to jump on a train, travel thousands of miles with hardly any money, no documents, and do this. What drove him, do you think, more than others?
He really got in trouble without his mother at his side in Central America. He got passed from relative to relative, which is not uncommon. And also, like a lot of these children who are left behind by their mothers, he comes to really idealize her. He sees her as salvation to all his problems. If only he can be with her, then somehow, the world will be right again. And so that really drives him and drives many, many children. He is one of 48,000 children from Mexico and Central America who enter the United States alone without either parent each year. So it's a small army of children who are heading north, some of them to work, but many of them, the majority, to come reunify with a parent. And in 3 and 4 cases, it's these single mothers who left them behind in their home countries.
48,000 children. I guess Canadians certainly usually associate this kind of a migration with men looking for work. But as your book points out, it is increasingly women, single mothers, and that triggers this follow-on migration of children too. And I'm wondering, what's causing the change in this pattern?
Well, it really surprised me as well. I had this image, having covered the issue of migration for over 2 decades, of it being mostly men, young men. And in reality, a study just came out here in the United States that 51% of those in the country illegally today are either women or children. So the face of who comes north has really changed radically in the last 10 or 20 years. Many of these are mothers whose husbands would beat them or drank too much or had mistresses, or simply their marriages fell apart. And without those 2 incomes in places like Central America and places like Honduras, it's simply impossible to, in many cases, to feed your kids more than once or twice a day. Many of these women face their children's cries of hunger at night, and so they face this choice that I can't imagine any parent facing of, do I stay in my home country unable to feed my children or see them go to school even past the 3rd grade to live in the same grinding poverty that I grew up in? Yeah. Or do I make this very painful choice of separating myself and coming north? And by the millions, women have made that choice.
For all that, I wonder if we could talk a little bit more about the obstacles on the way there, because this is at very least a dangerous venture, and that I thought was pretty much illustrated by the references you made right at the beginning of the trip, if you like, to the southern Mexican state of Chiapas. Remind us why Chiapas, the entry point, if you like, into Mexico, is known by so many of these migrants as the beast.
Well, they call it La Bestia, the beast, and that's because there are all sorts of bad actors who have amassed there, knowing that the greatest number of migrants, Central American migrants, start there and are there as they start their journey north on these freight trains. And so there are bandits who operate up and down alongside the rails, who rob and rape and beat and even kill these children. There are corrupt cops who fleece them and deport them to the southern border. There are gangsters who prowl the tops of the trains armed with machetes and knives and wooden bats and guns, and they go in groups of 10 or 20 from car to car, and they will surround the migrants and say, your money or your life, and sometimes, quote, feed them to the wheels just for the fun of it. And so that's one of the many, many dangers these kids face. If all that doesn't get them, they have to get on and off the trains as they're moving through Mexico, because the immigration authorities and police control the train stations. And so they oftentimes, it's very, very difficult to get on a moving train, to grab onto these ladders with everyone else jostling around you.
Yeah.
Oftentimes they slip and they fall, and they lose arms, they lose legs, they lose even their lives to the train. They call it el tren de la muerte, the train of death.
And why is it so many people lose their left legs to this train when they're running to get on? Why the left leg?
Well, when the train moves forward, it produces a sucking wind underneath, and so as you fall, it will suck you into the wheels as you let go or as you slip. And oftentimes, because of the way they're getting on the trains and grabbing onto the ladders, it happens to be that the left leg is the most likely to be cut off as they fall.
For all that, you know, it was a puzzle for me to read that amid all these obstacles, with all these people out to exploit or arrest these migrants, there are parts of Mexico where they're viewed with great sympathy.
Well, there's great cruelty in the South, but there's also amazing kindness towards these migrants, particularly as they leave the southernmost state of Chiapas in Mexico. And as the train heads north into the south-central area of Mexico, there are these places where there's a little curve in the tracks or there's a small village. And so the train has to slow. And there are often 10, 20, 30 people in these tiny villages who rush out of their homes. And they wave and they smile and they shout. And they have these small bundles of food in their arms. And they will throw it up to these migrants, these total strangers from other countries, up on top of the train. Sometimes when these bundles land in the migrants' arms, they'll start sobbing because, you know, sometimes they haven't eaten in days. What's most amazing is these people along the tracks are often the poorest in Mexico. They maybe make $1, $2 a day. They barely have enough to feed their own children, the bare necessities, tortillas and beans. And yet they've seen the suffering of these migrants. They've seen them fall off the trains weak from hunger. And they believe that it is the Christian thing to do, to give to these people. And so they come out and they throw bread and they throw tortillas and they throw fruit that is in season and they throw bottles of water. And if they have absolutely nothing to throw, they come out and they give a silent prayer as the train passes by towards these migrants. It is unbelievably moving. I remember one woman over 100 years old along the tracks, and her hands were so gnarled with age that she would force them to make these little bags with tortillas and with beans, so her 70-year-old daughter could run down the rocky slope and throw these bags up to the migrants as the train passed. And I remember what she said: if I have one tortilla, I will give half away. I know that God will bring me more.
Powerful stuff. Let me bring you back, if I can, for a moment to Enrique and his mother. Can you tell me where Enrique and his mother Lourdes are now, what their situation is now?
Well, after many, many years, Enrique does reach his mother in North Carolina, and they have this joyous reunion. And they have this brief honeymoon, and then this resentment surges in Enrique, and he walks up to the line of almost hating his mother, and spirals downward for many years. But then he really pulls out of it. He realizes he's only hurting himself. He's hurting his mother, and the love that he's always felt for her, the yearning to be with her, really overtakes that resentment he has felt. And today they live both in Florida, and he goes over every morning to her house, and she gives him his cup of coffee before he heads off to work painting houses, and he gives her a huge hug, and they really love each other very, very much.
Amazing story. Thank you very much for telling us about it.
Thank you.
It's been a pleasure.
Thanks.
Sonia Nazario, a Pulitzer Prize-winning reporter with the Los Angeles Times. And her book, Enrique's Journey, is published by Random House. If you've just joined us, you can hear the entire program anytime on the web, cbc.ca/dispatches. So far, the stories we've heard all focus on the human traffic from south to north. But it's not all one way. For Canadian Branko Lazarevich, a brief trip to the Mexican city of Juarez was the continuation of his life's own journey. He was with a group of volunteers making the long trip south to build houses for the poor, to make a difference in their lives, and ended up making a difference in his own along the way. This is his diary from those days.
Our journey to Mexico. Leaving the frosty air of Calgary, I climb into a van that will soon hold 13 others. We're giving up our holidays to help build a house for a family that none of us have ever met, thousands of kilometers away in a land most of us have never set foot in. After several hours on the highway, the van crosses over the American border, and my anticipation begins to grow. Finally, I can begin to fulfill a promise I made to myself. I grew up in war-torn Bosnia during the early 1990s. When my mother and I came to Canada, complete strangers helped us start a new life here. Now it's time to pass on the favor, help someone else in need. Three days after crossing into the U.S., we drive into New Mexico. We stop to exchange our Canadian dollars and talk with a woman at the bank about our trip. She looks at me with motherly concern and says in a thick Spanish accent, "Be careful not to go down to Alice." It took us a moment to realize she was warning us not to go into the alleys. Later that day, with our money safely tucked away, we reach El Paso, Texas, and head for the Mexican border. Looking out the window of the van, I'm impressed by the stark contrast between El Paso and Juarez. El Paso is graced with shiny glass buildings, towering totems of American prosperity. On the other side of the chain-link fence, shanty houses litter the dusty hills of Juarez. The striking buildings of El Paso soon disappear as we cross the border. The streets now lined with brightly colored single-level brick buildings. Mexicans dressed in traditional costumes run up to the cars trying to make a couple of dollars off the tourists. Our driver takes us further into the heart of the city. The streets narrow and are increasingly dominated by little shops selling everything from bicycles to washing machines. As the people watch our van pass by, their faces beam with curiosity. Our team leader informs us that we are lost in the alleys, the very place the woman at the bank had warned us not to go. I don't mind. This is simply an adventure, and a part of every great adventure should include getting lost at least once. After an exchange in broken Spanish with some helpful locals, we finally make our way to the orphanage, where we are staying for the next 6 days. When we pull up, a group of happy kids ranging in age from 5 to 12 run to greet our van. They bombard us with a flurry of Spanish. Our communication is limited to hand signals and spinning English words into remotely sounding Spanish. So we decide just to start playing a game of soccer in a nearby cement playground. That night, we go to a local grocery store. This is more than a place to buy food. It's a meeting place where people socialize and talk about the day. As we push our 2 carts up the aisles, we catch more than a few curious looks from the locals. Considering the average Mexican makes about $5 a day, I am shocked to see the prices for common everyday products such as milk, eggs, and bread about the same as in a Canadian store. After cooking dinner that night, we meet briefly to go over the project plans for the next day, then collapse into our beds. We wake up early to begin work in a cooler morning air. The work site is in a desert landscape on the outskirts of Juarez, surrounded by mountains. We are building a single-story home in the midst of the slums of Juarez, where the average home is slapped together with construction waste. By noon, the cement foundation is done. We quickly begin work hammering together the wood frame for the home. It's surprising how many directions a nail can travel. I'm certain an X-ray of some parts of the frame would find nails contorted into the most peculiar shapes. The next day, heat stroke or just general exhaustion catches up with me. I have an extreme case of gastrointestinal illness. As I sit by the toilet bowl, I start questioning myself. What am I doing 3,000 kilometers away from home? I wonder whether my work here will make a difference. Fortunately, the next day the worst is over and I join my friends at the work site. Finally, the moment comes. We are finished. The house we built would be considered a shed by Canadian standards. Yet to the single mother and her 15-year-old daughter who will make it a home, this modest structure means the world. For Dispatches, I'm Branko Lazarevic in Calgary.
And Branko Lazarevic is a Canadian student living in Calgary. And isn't it surprising the directions a nail can travel? Our show for this week. Thank you for listening. Let us know what you thought of it with an email to dispatches@cbc.ca. You can hear anything you missed, along with all our past shows on our website, cbc.ca/dispatches, or visit our pod site, www.cbc.ca/podcasting.
To be hygienic mentally. That means being moral. That means having a center. That means being sovereign. You cannot have social or political sovereignty unless you have inner spiritual moral sovereignty, and there's no way to put the cart before the horse there. And we're going to live in the age now of apocalypse, in which we're going to, there's going to be a sort of a division of the sheep and the goats to see which people have this kind of thing prioritized. Who has their moral house in order, who has their inner republic in order, you see? And then those people have the right to ask for it to be externally. But you can't have it externally if you don't have it within. And this simple law is going to be retaught to us in the next couple of years.
Michael, this is now Thursday in most time zones, and today is the day that a former French air traffic controller by the name of Eric Julian predicted on this program that part of this comet, 73P, that is breaking up, that today's the day, he says, a huge chunk is going to smash into the Atlantic Ocean and cause a tsunami so big it'll wipe out half of the eastern coast of the United States, for example. Well, I don't think it'll happen.
No,
that's his prediction.
And he's not the only one. There's so many people who predicted all sorts of devastation, and almost any clairvoyant that you meet who's ever had any background in clairvoyancy will always tell you that at one time in their life they always thought the Eiffel Tower was going to, fall down, and the mountains were going to erupt. It's a common, well-known idiom, and I know where it's rooted. It's rooted in the psychology of a lot of people who get into this kind of field. You see, we must not forget also that just because you may be clairvoyant or have certain intuitive abilities, it doesn't mean yet that you're also hygienic. You also have your own inner problems. You also have your own psychology to deal with. A man's psychology is the bedrock. It's the common denominator of everything you do. So science cannot be objective because the scientific person has an unconscious that is involved in that experiment. A psychic can have his predictions skewed because, remember, that person is not a machine. That person has an unconscious. He has his own drives and urges within. So this whole psychological component, which we've very carefully sidelighted and downplayed. That's wrong. We are subjective individuals, and our own psyche and our own complexion, the temperament of our own being, the mix between our intellectual and emotional selves, must be taken into consideration when we, in our work and in our predictions and in our scientific endeavors.
And Michael, you have a new website out on numerology. I want to talk with you about that when we come back on Coast to Coast AM.
The gateway to the West. This is Coast to Coast AM with George Norrie on Premier Radio Networks.
Sure is. By the way, thanks again for continuing to push our book, Worker in the Light, up the list on Amazon.com. The pre-orders are doing very well. The book doesn't come out until September 19th, but we're making arrangements to take part of those proceeds, personally, me, and give them to needy coast-to-coast listeners. We already have the list. Those of you who are still emailing me, at least for this go-round, for this book, we've got, believe me, more than I can handle. But we've got the list. But thank you, those of you who are ordering the book. Pre-orders on Amazon are doing very well. They are selling it, if you're still interested, at a steep discount, and they tell us that back to Coast, Michael Tesseri and our guest. Michael, tell us, what are you doing in the world of numerology all of a sudden?
Well, remember the last time we were talking about I launched last year a great site on numerology, Timenosis?
Yes.
We've made in the last couple of months, again, based on the overwhelming influence from the people. Yeah, exactly. It's just incredible. We've had a lot of input, and we basically, it's the same site. We just upgraded it. We have like a 2.0 type of situation right now. And the brilliant thing that members and potential new members need to know is that now, when they sign up with us, they can actually have this personal timescope, this chart that's based on the numerology system that I work with, into their email box. It's actually connected to iCalendar, to Outlook, to Google, so they can just download it. They don't have to visit our website anymore. It's more customized. It's easier to use. They can also update should they need to, and they can customize how they want to look this new calendar, this numerological calendar to look. So that, for beginners maybe who are not totally familiar with the system, they would just want their predictions for the day, which is wonderful. That's what I get, actually.
Oh, that's great.
I've been working with the thing since I'm 9 years old, 9 years old, and I prefer to get just my day. You can have the month and the year. You just need to select those buttons. But the idea is...
Well, I'm like you, Mike. I just want to get through tomorrow.
Right.
That's it. When I do that, then I'll worry about the next day.
And that's what we do. So every day, if you make that selection, then every day when you wake up, it'll greet you in your mailbox. And the beauty of why Timenosis is important is because of the internet. I've taught this in mystery schools for years. I thought that two things were happening, and that is that I always felt kind of bad that, people had to come on to the mystery school and learn the whole thing from beginning to end, all of these things, astrology, tarot, whatever, and that this beautiful piece of numerology was kind of restricted to those full members, and I wanted a way to modulate it so that the rest of the world, could benefit. And it's just, with the internet, that time, I had to wait for the time of the internet, basically, because there was no other way of doing it. There was no other way of modulating the numerological aspect of it. So now, if you're using Outlook, if you're using the email, you will have this chart pop right in there every morning, so you will know your intention, because this subject of numerology is vitally important. The whole universe, including your body, and the whole universe, it's the architecture of the human psyche, just like the architecture of the universe, is based on numbers. Science knows this, the Pythagoreans knew it, and the builders of the pyramid knew it. And the malign adversarial agencies that operate in this world are obsessed by number and know about time, and the mysteries and the secrets of time. It's about time that we started to use these important things. I mean, people count on their fingers, don't they? You got 10 fingers, and the people have been counting on them for years. The idea is that, remember, we were just talking about the Maya. One thing that the Maya talk about in their prophetic work is that the date of birth of a human being is the most important set of numbers in their life, and that the key to their success and the key to their destiny is in those few numbers, those 3 numbers of the date of birth. And numerology, or the science of number, was the mystery of connecting to that success that's in a person's date of birth. The Maya knew it thousands of years ago, and the whole of the universe is based on these number symbolism. And metaphysical teachers, like myself, have been teaching it and benefiting and using it personally. And it just was, how can we, okay, so you have your class members and they benefit it, but I always felt that this particular modality, must be used and must be known by as many people in the world as possible. And now through this modality of the internet, we have that chance. And the second thing is, it's taken a long time because it's difficult to do this.
Oh, sure.
Well, you see, I can't just go and hire anybody in a technical team to create such a database. You have to have somebody who's both a scientist, very familiar with internet programming and all of the database programming, and is also wholly committed and interested in the subject that we're talking about, in this case numerology. And to find that team to work with has been also a lot of delay, because I find some fantastic scientists and people who could do it, but they're not conversant with the subject, don't use it themselves, and I preferred not to use kinds of people like that. So I had to wait till I could meet the right people who are expert scientists and expert programmers and knew the power of the internet, and also were lovers of the subject of numerology. And last year we found these people and who have been working overnight now. We've just made the upgrades. So I wanted to make sure that people know that when they come online now, it is connected to their email, and you can have that selected so that it comes in every morning there, and you'll have your prediction for the day, which is customized to you and vital for your empowerment, vital to use the power of number, for your overall success, both physically and spiritually.
What causes this to work?
Metaphysical science, quantum physics. This thing is not bogus. It is not something, the architecture of a man's life is based on numbers. He's born on a specific day, and you can never erase that. You can never change that. And in my system, what I did was I combined, as people in the mystery school knew, I've taught, is I combined the old subject of numerology, George, with astrology, which had never been done correctly before. There's a synchronization here, because we have the old Gregorian calendar, and we have this calendar that is just totally not right. The ancient metaphysical subjects go by the 12 signs of the zodiac, so somebody had to come along and marry these two together. Now, the beauty of the time gnosis site is that you don't need to know any of this. This is all back-end stuff. We're not asking people to come on like they do in the mystery school to take a long time to discover the mysteries of numerology. What we're talking about here is using the benefits of the subject, like you already said yourself, and not having to learn the whole of the metaphysics of it. What's the point of learning the metaphysics of these subjects if it's not going to benefit you? So that's our job. The job of the creator is to make it easy for others to benefit without necessarily learning all of the nuts and bolts of it. And that's again what we've done. But time is a phenomenon. It exists, and men and women are slaves of time. The beauty is that we can turn that reality around. We have choice, and through understanding the true nature of time and its connections to consciousness, and understanding that it can be your best friend as opposed to your enemy, your life swivels and changes. I think the best way to explain it is that everyone in this world, everyone listening to the show has intention. They have passion and they have intention. They have a life vision. They have a vision of their life, and they have daily intention about the things they're going to do in the day or the year or the life. But see, that's like a river that has no banks. That's like a vine that has no bamboo to keep it straight. I think that everyone has the intention. But what happens if you don't have the channel for that intention, or you don't have the lens to focus it? Numerology is an ancient metaphysical science that allows you, if you know how to work with it right, to focus your intention and your passion and your will and your drive so that you can attain the goals that you set. The reason why people are unsuccessful, why they're not reaching the goals, and whatever those goals are, they work right across the board: physical, spiritual, mental, relational. You focus your will and your intention. That's what the smart people know behind the thrones of power in this world. They're the ones using it on us. They're the ones telling you you're going to get up at, whatever hour and work for 9 hours to this moment in time. So we have a very soft...
Or 12 hours.
Yeah, can you imagine? We have a very soft...